my fellow randoms. My name is Kev Duffy, and welcome to this, our 34th episode of What's Your Random Podcast, where I discover and celebrate independent and individual creativity from the inception of an idea to the process and the practicalities of bringing that idea into existence, into being as something, some form of art that you can share with other people. So I'm interested in the ins and outs of that process, and I thank you for joining me here. If it's your first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy the show. If you are a frequent listener, welcome back. I'm glad that you have chosen to join me again. Today is a special episode of What's Your Random Podcast. It is a first in our history that some poor soul has decided to come back for more and have a second discussion with me. And actually, Steve Urena, who is my guest on this episode, joined me for my first official episode. It was really second episode of What's Your Random Podcast, but the first time I welcomed on a stranger danger, somebody who I didn't know, to talk about their project and their process, and it was a blast. I guess we both had a good time because we both came back for more. And speaking of stranger danger, Steve's project that he has joined me today to talk about is Zombie Date Night, a comic that he has written. And it basically looks at what would happen if you went on a first date with somebody who you didn't know, met on the internet on one of the many apps out there. And during that date, as you're feeling each other out, deciding if there might be room for romance, if there might be room for a relationship, if there might be room for friendship, zombies attack. And he has really brilliant ideas built into this, and I'm excited for this project. It is currently live on Kickstarter if you're interested in checking it out. And I would be remiss if I did not mention Steve's first project, which he joined me last October to talk about. It hasn't even been a year since we started What's Your Random Podcast. Is kind of shocking to me. But yeah, just in October of last year, he joined me to talk about slowpokes, which was a horrific look at what would happen if sloths became murderous and attacked everyone in their path. And we talk about that. We talk about Zombie Date Night. We talk about, launching a second Kickstarter, what he learned from the first to bring into the second, and just had a heck of a lot of fun. So without further ado, join me in welcoming Steve Urena. Enjoy the random. This meeting is being recorded.
All right, now it's official. Now we know that it's happening.
Yeah. Welcome back, Steve Urena.
Thank you very much.
You've made history in my life twice. You are my first my first guest. Really, I had one guest before you who was a buddy. This is the last episode of What's Your Random Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry to inform you. No, but you're my first repeat guest. So
awesome. Thank you. I'm glad I'm interesting enough to come back on again.
Oh my gosh, I'm glad I'm glad that I didn't scare you away and that you were willing.
Samesies.
Yeah, Steve was on episode 2 of this podcast in October, and we discussed that was October 2020.
Yes, right before the vaccine stuff hit. You know what I mean? We were still in lockdown. We were still figuring things out. I had no idea if Slowpokes was going to work or not. You had no idea about this podcast. There's a lot of uncertainty going into this. But now we're calm. Things worked out for both of us, and we're here. Here we go.
And no surprise to anyone that Slowpokes worked out because it was.
I'm surprised about my stuff, but I was not surprised about it.
I'm surprised that I've kept the steam going and kept the train moving forward with this as well.
You're a good interviewer.
Thank you, man.
People want to be on your show. People are excited about your show. You're passionate about what you're doing. So obviously your work shines through.
I very much appreciate that, though you might have gone too far. But
He's a monster now.
you've gone too far with the compliments. No, but yeah, Steve had successfully funded Slowpokes, and then he decided to switch it up and is here to talk about Zombie Date Night, which congratulations, it's already successfully funded. But you still have, by the time this episode goes up, you'll still have 30 some odd days at least left on the Kickstarter, and there are many great benefits. So we're going to enjoy a conversation, but people who are listening should check out the project and see if they're in time to help fund your goals in your future as a comic book storyteller, or a storyteller in the medium of comics.
Storyteller in the medium of comics. That's good. No, I thank you for anybody who backed. Thank you for anybody who went on the Kickstarter and gave me some money for this. Any amount of money that I get from this will go towards future comic projects. So it's not like I'm rolling around in a Maserati or anything with this money. It's just I want to keep creating, and as long as people want to see me do more stuff, then I'm going to keep writing comics and keep creating.
Yeah, well, being successfully funded only, what are you 50% through the Kickstarter time-wise right now? Something like that?
No, so this one I want to do a longer one. I'm only 2 weeks in, which is crazy. Well, tomorrow will be, I think maybe today's 2 weeks. So last week with a weekend, I was fully funded, which was amazing. And now I'm like, all right, now that we got the funding, I just want to have as many eyes on this as possible, or like make sure to reach as many readers as possible. So I wanted to do a longer Kickstarter. So I know the norm is like 30 days. But like with 60 days, I want to make sure I talk to everybody I can about the project, whether it's zombie people, horror people, comic people, just making sure that I get to share with the world Zombie Date Night.
Yeah. And is that a strategy that evolved out of your experience with Slowpokes?
Slowpokes, I mean, when it came out, I definitely wanted to just hit Halloween, so I wasn't really thinking about the amount of days. I also did not know if anybody would want it. You know what I mean? With Slowpokes, I just was like, all right, let's put this out. I think Halloween makes the most sense. And I went from there. Now that I am doing Kickstarters, I guess, regularly, I just want to make sure, because I don't know where else to go. I don't know where else to promote. And it seems like Kickstarter is a good idea, because when it does get funded, or when it starts catching fire, they'll promote it on their site, and that's seen by so many different people from different walks of life. So I think that's what I would like to do at the moment. If anybody has any better ideas, please reach out. I will take anything under advisement.
Yeah, I can't cite the article directly because I didn't read it and I don't remember the byline, but it was something along the lines of pandemic Kickstarters for comics like grew X amount of times, X meaning 2 or 3 or 5. It was something like really impressive for the growth of amount of projects, not only being promoted on Kickstarter, but the ones that were successfully funded on Kickstarter. So it certainly seems like the community is alive and well on Kickstarter for funding indie comics, and also that the indie comic genre or market, or whatever you want to call it, is also alive and well, with new creators coming into the fold who are not beholden to the standard old industry way of doing things, which is cool.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many cool projects on Kickstarter, and there's things that you'd be like, oh, I didn't even think about that. And it's a different change of pace. And it's nice to see people who have never made comics before promoting their stuff, because it's like, hey, this is the future. These are people that will be in the comic book industry in 10, 15 years, or, hopefully less than that. But it's definitely a very positive community, and people have been very cool towards me about it, especially since that was my first comic that I've ever written myself. And it's just, I just want to keep it going.
Yeah. And so using the funds to fund future projects, like, what does that look like? What do those funds help you lock in artists for future projects, or
what does
that look like
exactly? So I go through Comics Experience for my comics, because they just make it so easy. So like, if you ever wanted to write a comic, they will, if you go through their creative services. All you have to do is, reach out to them. There's a fee, or there's like they'll find the artist, they'll find the inker, they'll find the colorist, and they'll find they'll put all that together for you and put a team together so you can make this comic a reality. So for me, that saves a ton of time, because I'm learning who's in the industry now, but like just reaching out to people, tracking people down or trying to get somebody who's available, that's a tough thing. With Comics Experience, they know it's like, all right, I think this person's open, or like this person's up for it. This person is a good style for you, and they'll pair you up. And here we are. Like with Zombie Date Night, they paired me up with some great artists and colorists and editors and inkers and all that stuff. And we're doing it. It looks amazing. So I can't.
It does.
Can't think of it.
Yeah, I had a question about that too, because I knew that you used that service to help you, focus on what matters to you, which is writing, I presume. But I was wondering if you guide, and we might have even addressed this in our first interview, but if you guide the process and say, I want the art to look something like this, or if they put 3 artists in front of you and then you say which one you like best out of those 3.
So they'll give us samples of artists that they think would work for the project, and then I will be like, hey, I like this. Can we try to get them, or try to get them booked on the project? And then they'll reach out. If they're available, then all systems go. If not, then they'll be like, all right, who else in this stable do you like? And they make sure that everything works on all cylinders, and it's not flimsy by any means. Like everybody gets their deadlines done, and it works very well.
That's awesome. And were there any other things? I mean, I know you stretched the timeline out for this Kickstarter for Zombie Date Night, but going from Slowpokes less than a year ago to Zombie Date Night now, like what changed for you, or what lessons were learned? Anything new that you implemented this time around?
So I guess what lessons were learned was that for whenever I'm coming up with a story, now there's it's free reign to do whatever I want to do. Like before, I was a little bit nervous about Slowpokes. I was like, oh, maybe people won't like it, or people will hate it, or maybe I'm not sure what the audience is going to react to this, or people in the industry are going to react to this. But everything's been very positive. So for me, it's like, all right, I get to be myself. I get to be unapologetically me, and not worry about working for anybody, or worrying about oh, this person doesn't like this, or this person doesn't like this. It's like, no, I am responsible for its success. I'm responsible for its failure. So I'm the bottom line, and just it's all a learning experience, and it's all wondering what's going to happen and predicting for the future. But as long as I'm having fun, I think other people are going to have fun too.
I like that. Words to live by, for sure. Is there anything on the cutting room floor from Slowpokes that you were not comfortable at that time putting into the story that you wish you had?
So the original ending for Slowpokes, and again, I might use this later on for something, or take things from it. In the original script for Slowpokes, I had them, they were going to eviscerate a police officer, and then wear his skin, and then walk it out, kind of like the kids in the overcoat type of situation. And I was like, it just didn't fit with what I was doing. You know what I mean? I had the idea written down, but I'm like, all right, maybe I shouldn't do this, but that probably would have been maybe that would have been a better ending. But no, just, learning from Zombie Day Night, it's more or less, not messing with the shipping, because shipping overseas, the price is a lot different than here, and just learning lessons from that. And the U.S. Postal Service, things change all the time, just keeping up with that, and just, trying to have as much fun as possible. But, it was a kind of rewarding experience, because I was taking all the comics that people bought, and I was packaging them up and shipping them out myself. And for me, I was like, it's kind of like a badge of honor. Some people I know don't like to do that, but for me, I was like, there's love in this, and I'm sending it out to everybody.
Yeah. It's part of the process. That's like the punctuation on a very long journey for you, I imagine.
Yeah, but it was fun. And then right after that, Zombie Date Night, I've always had the Zombie Date Night idea in my head, but right after Slowpokes, I think, got funding, I was like, oh wow, I can do something else. I can do another one. So once that was happening, I started workshopping and started just writing a script for Zombie Date Night. And I luckily had my wonderful girlfriend Allegra. She's the editor on this comic, because I thought, why not? You know, you got to bring in people you love for certain things. And like for Zombie Date Night, that makes the most sense to bring in my girlfriend to tell me how shitty my ideas are sometimes. So it's good, and for her to fix them. So it was a awesome experience just working with her and just going through, you know, the motions of like, oh, what if we tried this? What if we tried this? And she's like, oh, you know, maybe this works, or let's try this over here. And here we are. And now this is a longer comic too. The Slowpokes was 20. This is 32. So I was able to take the money from Slowpokes and get, you know, do more pages, because I think the one thing that I got was that after reading Slowpokes, everybody's like, oh, we want more, which is a good thing. But I also want to make sure I don't, you know, I think 32 pages, at least for this story, is a good length. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what people say.
Yeah, and how so? I would like to dig into that a little bit more. The 20-page comic versus the 32-page comic, and you know, Slowpokes was very action-packed,
yes,
and yet it still told a story. So, I guess, you know, maybe riff on a little bit more. This might not be a constructive question, but just wanting to talk more about storytelling with so much action over, you know, certain length of pages. Like, how do you determine the climax, the arc, and things, and the pacing of your comics, and how do you spread that out over the pages that you're allotted?
So I think just the feeling of Slowpokes is different than like Zombie Day Night. Slowpokes, I wanted to make sure it's like, well, it's about fast killer sloths. Like the action should be fast. It should be a fast-paced comic. And also at the time, that was what I was workshopping with Comics Experience, that it was only 20 pages. So I didn't, since being my first comic, I wasn't sure what my page lengths would be, or what, you know, I wasn't sure what to do yet. But with 20 pages, I was like, all right, I know I can pace this out and get to here. Also, you know, it costs more money per page. So like 20 pages are reasonable for me to spend money. With 32 pages, it was a lot more. But luckily I had the backing from Slowpokes to go to that 32 pages. But for me, it was able to create, you know, kind of a mood in Zombie Date Night where it's like, all right, it's not slow paced, but it works, and it works well enough where it kind of can breathe a little bit. Like you can have more moments that mean something without like rushing. It's like, okay, I got to get to this 20. Like with 32, it's like, all right, you have some breathing room. You can establish more of the characters, do more action, kind of do like a slow build for certain things and jokes and whatnot, and then do the payoff and put it in a nicely wrapped bow. So luckily, I was able to learn about pacing through Slowpokes, and I've had experience pacing stuff for like, you know, my copywriting job or for my journalism stuff, like making sure to reach what I need to reach. So it wasn't that bad going into Zombie Day Night. It wasn't like I was writing 48 pages, 50 pages. Like I had it pretty much down just from doing an outline. Definitely helps because that's like your roadmap. So with the outline, I was able to figure out like, okay, I want this, and let's go here, let's stop here, and we'll get to 32.
So is it something like you have the bullet points, you know,
yes,
say 5 specific actions that need to take place, and then you pace them out over the length of the 32 pages?
My process is I'll have a crazy idea as like Slowpokes, and I will I'll do a brain dump of just like things I want to see. Like, all right, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. And like I'll keep brain dumping until I'm like, all right, I think I have enough stuff. And then I'll take that and form an outline with it. And, you know, try to do like, okay, we'll go here, we'll go here. My girlfriend put me on deadline, so she'll be like, all right, I want to see the first 10 pages. I'm like, okay. So I'll do page 1, you know, this is what happens in this panel, this is what happens here. And we'll go through the 10 pages and we'll kind of like edit from that way, because at least with 10 pages, not super overwhelming. It's like, all right, you know, we can pace it out in a certain way without really losing anything. So we go through the 10 pages, and then once I'm clean there, then I start writing the next 10 pages in the same process. The next 10 pages or 12 pages, and then just figure it out from there. But luckily it's so clean by the time you get to that last 12 pages that it just kind of goes very smoothly.
Yeah. And is your brain dump? Well, first question, I guess, is how much of what you brain dump ends up getting flushed down the toilet rather than being put into the
For
comic book?
this one, there wasn't really a lot that did. Some, I mean, some stuff definitely did, but it was more like what people were saying. You know what I mean? Like what more dialogue than that. I think gets shortened down more in my comics more than like an idea. Because with an idea, I try to make sure that like I flesh it out to the point where it's like, all right, let's make sure that there's a reason for this. But with dialogue, that I definitely went through a bunch of times. I'm like, all right, this is too long, or this is too short, or this isn't clear enough, and just whittling it down until it's clear and less is more. So like in the most in the least amount of words, convey the biggest message I can.
Yeah. And do you Easter egg or do you plan and set up things for future issues? No matter how far in the future you see them happening, do you like try to archive information that you could refer back to in later issues?
Yes, I do try to archive stuff. I do try to figure things out a little bit in the future. Zombie Date Night 2, though, if since there's funding and people bought, the pledges where they're in the next one, that I'm still trying to figure out. But like Slowpokes, I'm like, all right, if this is going forward, I know where I want to go with the story. At least with Zombie Date Night, I think I need to think about it, or it needs to just hit me. It hasn't hit me yet.
And do you I was surprised that you weren't doing just the quick follow-up to Slowpokes too. Was there a specific reason why you decided to branch out and do another story?
So the reason I wanted to do that was because Slowpokes, a lot of people talked about it and people were like, oh, this is great and this is whatever. I love Slowpokes, don't get me wrong, but I want to make sure that like that people have that unpredictability of like what I'm going to do next. Because I felt like if I did Slowpokes 2, then it would just be like, well, when's Slowpokes 3, when's Slowpokes 4? Like, you know what I mean? Like I would just be pigeonholed to that. And like I love that. And I love Slowpokes and I'm going to go back to Slowpokes when I can. But I want to make sure that as a storyteller that you're like, okay, he can tell this kind of story, he can tell this kind of story and kind of branch out because if I rest on my laurels of just Slowpokes, I'm not going to get any better. I'm just going to be doing the same thing over and over again. At least with Zombie Date Night, it's like it's a little bit different. Well, a lot different, I guess, because there's no sloths in it. But like at least it's still in the horror genre, and it's just trying new things and figuring it out, and hopefully people will like it.
Yeah. And was there anything that struck you in the difference writing for Date Night compared to Slowpokes, like challenges or takeaways?
Just making sure that it has a different tone. Like it's still me, but a different tone. So like with Zombie Date Night, I got to be a little bit more vulnerable compared to Slowpokes because like Slowpokes, it's fast coach. Like what that is. Like going into it, what's going to happen. It's going to be bloody and it's going to be like a bloody roller coaster ride. With Zombie Date Night,
literally,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
a roller coaster ride with bloody
with their heads get
frothing at the mouth slobs.
Yeah, but like with that, that's kind of like on the surface. It's not as it's like I'm making fun of the B movie genre too. Like it's not taking itself too seriously. With Zombie Date Night, I can be vulnerable. The characters can be a little bit more vulnerable and deeper. And yes, there is a grandma who fights off hordes with a chancleta, but like there's relationships there. There's character dynamics, and it gave me it gave me more to play around with, which was awesome. And it was definitely a little bit of a challenge, but it was like a fun challenge where it's like, okay, these are fleshed out characters. They, this is what I think they would talk like and act like. And, I had a very good time doing
it. Yeah. Were there any practices that you implemented to get your brain to switch modes between the two, comics?
So I try to do character sheets for my characters, and then more like, all right, what does this person act like? I base a lot of their characteristics around people I know or people like I've seen. And then once you have, these colorful characters, the story kind of just falls into place. And then you have fun with it because everybody's kind of fleshed out and what they're going to say. And they kind of just spoke to me. It was a very cool experience of just, I'll talk in the voices when I'm rereading the story just to make sure that it sounds right.
Yeah.
because that helps a lot. Because if everybody has the same tone and the same energy, then it's not going to work out.
Yeah, yeah. I find that too when I'm writing that oftentimes I'll write every character as the main character, and then I have to go back and, okay, no, this isn't all from one perspective. I
Yeah,
need to change the tone of voice. This person's not feeling, the second character isn't feeling what the first character is feeling. So in response, I have to, channel their emotion, which is different than the person they're responding to.
yeah, and it
But
also
yeah,
helps.
reading in the voices is really helpful for me as well.
And it also helps to have like a good editor or like somebody with you. So luckily, with my girlfriend was with me, I was able to read back and forth, and she'll be like, I don't think that's good," or like, "I
Right,
don't think
because
that's
there's also the
funny," or like,
natural
"It doesn't sound
flow.
right." Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's definitely good to have another set of eyes on it and ears just to hear what's going on and read what's going on, and you get their perspective too. It's like, oh, I didn't even think of it like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I saw that one of the Kickstarter bonus benefits was you're going to do a podcast with your girlfriend talking about the
Yeah, so
process a
you're
little
gonna
bit
hear
more.
her beating the shit out of me for 20 minutes, 30 minutes before we start. No, no. But yes, we're going to go over the process. We're going to go over like, how it started and, probably our first dates and things like that, because it goes with the zombie date night comic. But yeah, we're going to chat it up, and we're going to go through, the process, and I'm going to go through like my thought process and her thought process of doing this. Cause this is her first like editing thing on a comic, which is she could write and she can edit. She's done that stuff before, just not in the comic medium. So it's going to be interesting, and I'm excited to share the dynamic we have with with the world.
Yeah, yeah, that is exciting. So how do you plan on recording and distributing, and is it just going to
Uh,
be
yeah, just me and her just gonna record probably through Zoom or through, maybe, I mean, since she's right here, I have like recording equipment. We could just do that, and once the Kickstarter is over, like I'll edit it together and I'll put it out. I did one for Slowpokes as well with my best friends from school, because I was like, well, who else? I was like, if I never have a career in this, it's like at least I get to be with my friends who've supported me from day one. So I want to keep doing that too with my Kickstarters. Like, all right, if I'm doing a podcast about something, I want to, whatever the topic is, like find the best person that I can talk about it with.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And how many of your supporters do you think are reoccurring and coming back because of slow pokes?
So
Do you have
here's
do
the
you have
thing
a
that's
huge
crazy.
following?
No, I mean, I think I have a decent following on Twitter, which is amazing. Like to me, that's been a great place to go, because there's so many creative people out there. And I will always retweet people's projects and things like that. So, find me on Twitter at the Steve Urena, Urena. And if it's good and it's positive, I'll retweet it. But
And that's the same on Instagram, right?
yes, same on Instagram.
So that'll
But
also be in the show notes and or in the corner of the video you're watching here.
But in terms of people coming back, I'm very surprised. I thought it would be more of a like, okay, people who wanted Slowpokes will want Zombie Date Night. It is a completely different audience, which is nuts. So I mean, of course, there's some people from Slowpokes that came over. There's some friends of mine that are like, oh, I want to just support them, but it's not as many as I thought it would be. Like the first comic, you always have everybody out the get go, like, okay, I want to support him because this is his first one, and
Right.
that was very positive and very, But then when the second one comes along, a lot of my friends, and again, I love them very much, and they're still supporting, but it's more of like, we already gave him, we already gave him $20, or we already gave him $30. Some of these people all read comics, you know what I mean? So it's fine, it's no problem. But with this, like I'm at I think 160 backers at the moment, and it's only week two, and there are people from all over the world and just different things. But I also guess people like zombies too. Like people who like zombies might not want creature horror. They might just want the zombies. So we'll see what happens. Right now, we're 2 weeks in, 160 backers. That's pretty. If we stop there, that's pretty good. I'm still happy with that.
Yeah, but you're not. You keep going. You
No.
got a good
Yeah, but I
chunk of
can't
time
make
left.
people buy it. Like if people want it, that they'll get it. If they don't want it, then that's it. But just the fact that
It,
people are taking a chance on me, that to me means the world.
yeah, yeah. Well, the size of the chance decreases with your successive successes, and this will be a second success for you already. So I also suspected or wondered if people who loved like ravenous sloths just didn't have the same appetite for a quasi romance story.
Maybe not. Maybe it's just the two different stories. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'd have to do a focus group about that. But I do support both. But listen, having two distinct audiences, that's a cool thing. That means
I
that
think it's, yeah.
that means I can live in different spaces and get fans that way, or get people to read my stuff that way. So I'm definitely going to be playing with different genres and different things as much as I can going forward.
Anything you can talk about directly or tiptoe around in terms of like not necessarily what your next project's going to be, but what other well, first, how many separate storylines do you think you could maintain at one time, and then what are some options for those
that would
future
definitely
storylines?
be hard to do. So maybe there'll be more one shots, maybe, you know what I mean, more of like, all right, this is a complete story, I'm not going back to it. You know what I mean? But I don't know, I think the sky's the limit. I think I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing this year after Zombie Date Night. I'll definitely share with you offline what I'm working on, but it's still, I'm still just figuring it out and just making sure that everything is right. I hope people like Zombie Date Night enough where they'll be like, oh, we'll come for the third one or whatever I'm doing. But it's definitely been a very cool experience, and it's just nice to know that people want to read more about killer sloths and zombies, which is we'll keep it going.
Yeah. Do you think that I lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, I'm still need another shot of my espresso here. But do you think you could manage more than the two storylines if you say you launch a third Kickstarter and you do a new story and that's also successful, but Zombie Date Night was successful and Sloths was successful in ways that the audiences are expecting you to release, follow-up issues to all three of them. Like, what do you think your limits are in that regard? And then the question that I lost my train of thought on was, how many issues in general do you think you could release a year? Like, what's your personal pace? Like,
my pace is quick in terms of coming up with a story. Like Zombie Day Night took me, I think, a month to write. And that's just like, but it's also because I had like the story in my head, and like even before I'm going to bed, like I'll type down stuff. So I am working on it. But like just based on what I've done in the past, I'm able to write stories quickly. So I'm sure there's a limit, and I definitely want to make sure that I'm not. I'm thinking of this more of like a movie sequel than a comic book sequel, because a lot of people do things per month. I don't think I can do that, but I can I can give you enough where you'll be like, all right, I'm coming back for when he does, do that second one or third one. Slowpokes, I think, could go on forever, and that I want to go as long as I can for, whatever I can do to make it more interesting. Zombie Date Night, I have kind of like an idea title wise, like how it will end. So maybe that's more like 3 or 4 issues or 3 or 4, thing. But I'll always make sure that I have enough story to keep you going, because that always pissed me off as a kid when you'd read something and be like, the hell is this? Like, oh, I don't know where the issue is. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I only have $5 on me. I can't do this. So I will definitely keep that in mind, and I'll try not to. I don't know though. We'll see what happens. I'm going to try to do my best, but like, I can work quick though. It's more or less just pacing out like a schedule for myself. Like, okay, October we're doing this, December we're doing this, February we're doing this. I give enough time where it's like there's some lulls, but it's not like 2 years, 3 years before I write something new. I'm not going to do that.
Right. Yeah, no, I asked because it's very impressive to be able to, I think, maintain multiple storylines and, a comic with multiple characters, and you're speaking in the voice of those characters and you're getting to know them intimately, as is the case for Zombie Date Night. Like, if you start focusing on sloths and then another one or two other projects, I think for me personally, it would be difficult to get back into zombie date night. And it takes a little while to get those gears moving again.
Yeah.
And I even find that in this one project I'm working on, like I'll have a busy week of my day job work and I just can't spend the time as intimately as I want to on my creative projects. And then work will slow down a week later. I'll return to the project, but that week off, like it takes a while to get churning again.
So for me, like my brain works where it's like, it's always on. And like, it's the opposite for me where like I need rest. Like I'll need like a week or I'll need like a weekend to just be like, all right, I just don't want to do anything. I don't want to think about anything. I just want to, exist. You know what I mean? I just want to exist, listen to music, play video games, just hang out with my friends and family. Just do that. Just not think about it, because I feel like the best ideas come to you when you are resting. Like you're not thinking about something.
That's what I have trouble with.
Yeah, something will pop up, but at least for me, like I'll write it down in my notepad just for later. And then when it's time to go to work, I'll go through it and I'll have a good amount of material to be like, all right, let's pull this out of here. Let's do this. Let's do that. But yeah, it could be tough, because if people like it and people want more, then there's probably a limit where I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know where I'm going. But I think luckily people are respecting everything, and people have been very kind. I have been getting like tweets and messages about, when's Slowpokes 2 coming out? And I'm like, Zombie Date Night's coming out. So, but I think people who want to read your stuff, they'll be cool with what you have, and hopefully they'll support.
Yeah. And I mean, in that case, it's just, you're building anticipation at this point, is the way I see it. I'm very excited for Slowpokes, but it's not the type of story that you need one issue a month. I think you're just excited when the issue comes out.
When it comes out.
Yeah.
I think doing that, every now, appropriately when that needs to come out is important, because if you do 20 issues of, I like, nobody's going to want to keep going that fast. You know what I mean? Like, except for the sloths, I guess, but nobody's going to want to keep reading, and I think they'll get burnt out from it. And I don't want to burn people out. So I think that's what the fun part is about doing other stories, is like, all right, you like Slowpokes, let's go here before I go back to it. But when I do go back, like I want to make sure that it is better and, bloodier and gorier and funnier, and just keep having fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that we've become acquainted, at least over Instagram, over the past many months. And, I know that you have a variety of interests, and I was wondering how, and, Slowpokes itself is very referential in general to the horror genre, and B horror movies, I guess. So I'm curious, like, how you interject your own personality, your own interests into these comics. Like, when is the right time to interject it? When is the right time to hold back? And how do you put in Easter eggs and references without going too direct and too overboard?
I mean, that is a good question. It's more or less just going through it and making sure that the reference or like makes sense within the story too. Like if people, like a certain thing and I reference it, if they know it, then they'll be like, okay, that's funny. But if they don't know it, then if it's still funny, then it's probably good to keep it. Like if it's something that works with the story, and like even if you didn't know what it was, you understood the reference, you understood like the joke, then I think you're good. If it's something super obscure that like people don't know, I feel like that's the hardest part to do. That's a hard hurdle to jump over, because you don't want people to get turned off by it. So one of the comments I got from Slowpokes, from older readers, like people that I work with, or people that are just into a different type of comic, they said that the language it didn't click for them, because it was a lot of slang, like it was a lot of that. And so I took that into consideration. Like of course I want to have, if they're young, I want them to talk young. I want to have a younger, audience understand what's going on. But like I did take that into account. It's like, okay, not everybody's gonna know what this means. Let's try to make sure that it is still flavorful, but still something that like everybody could read and go like, okay, got it. Like I understand. So that was a nice lesson I learned. I was I was too young facing, I guess.
But I mean, for me, I mean, I'm not like a 18-year-old lax bro, but I was able to, I was able to enjoy, you know, the lax bros from the comic, essentially.
I hope I educated older people about, you know, putting spray painting balls on, you know, on the scoreboard or whatever, or things are I don't even remember what references I put in, but like, you know, whatever. I hope I got to educate, but we'll see what happens with Zombie Date Night.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing that I've been trying to do is like, I have so many references in my head. And when I do my own brain dump, a lot of times what I'm brain dumping is, you know, 10% or 5% referential. Like, oh, I think I could fit in a reference here that, you know, supports the story and it makes sense. And I could change it in a way that it's totally original, but has some connection to the root.
Yeah.
But also trying to write it in a way that you don't need to know the reference to.
Yes,
like if you don't know the reference, it's just camouflaged in the story. Exactly. Right.
And listen, everything comes from something else. Like there's nothing, right. Like, you know what I mean? Everything comes from something else. So like even Zombie Date Night or Slowpokes, like yes, fast killer sloths, you know, to my knowledge hasn't been done before. But that comes from like all those horror movies I watched as a kid. Same thing with this. You know, Dawn of the Dead and Shaun of the Dead and, you know, Resident Evil and whatever I can do to borrow from things that are great, I'm going to do my best to, you know, have it be in my stories.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wrote down a quote from the Kickstarter, which is, you wanted to make something that was different than what people are used to in the zombie genre. So yeah, what was your approach to doing something different? And, you know, I think for me, even I'm like, zombie stuff. Yours turned me on immediately because, okay, it's not just zombie stuff, it's a zombie romance. But aside from that, you know, what makes it original? What makes it, and I love the phrase from the messed up brain of Steve.
Yeah, I'm gonna different ones going forward.
So what makes, like, what are the special flavors that you added and approaches that you took?
So for me, like, you know, when I used to go on the dating apps and things like that, I always used to wonder what would happen if let's say I went on a date on one of these dating apps and like a zombie invasion happened. Like, what would you do? Like, if the date's going well, do you stick around to see and find out what's going on? Or if the date's going terrible, do you try to bail? Like, you know what I mean? Would you bail? Be like, all right, I got to get going. I know there's zombies, but I'll talk to you later. So I always thought that was an interesting idea. And to my knowledge, and again, maybe there's something that exists like that, but like, to my knowledge, I didn't know of anything like that. So when Slowpokes was a hit, I was like, okay, let's go back to this idea. I think there's something we can do here, you know, with this story. So I wanted to, you know, dating is scary as it is. So I'm like, all right, well, dating is scary and it's anxious, you know, everybody's anxious and trying to put on their best self. What if zombies came in too? Like, what would you know, I felt like that was just an interesting story. And that's something that I could play with and have fun. So that's where I think it's a little bit different. And it's more of a, like, it's like the zombies are there and the zombies are the characters, but it's more about these relationships and more about like finding yourself and being yourself and being okay with being yourself during a zombie invasion, I guess. And also there's a little bit of a twist with the zombies. I'm not going to say what it is until I guess people read it, but I wanted to do something that hasn't been done before, and that, to my knowledge, I don't think it has. So I'm very excited to share this with everybody, and we'll see what goes on.
And yeah, I think by just adding layers of meaning to a zombie story, you're already kind of surpassing most of the zombie stuff out there.
The zombie movies are just like, they're too, like, Walking Dead was good in the beginning, where it's like, you know, it's about these relationships and the zombies are also just there. So I kind of kept that approach to it, but I'm like, well, you got to add relationships to it. So that's why with Zombie Date Night, I was like, that's a good hook, because, you know, it would be a romance comedy too, like, because it's just
and the metaphor of like dating is scary and so are zombies is that's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. But it's frightening. Like you're meeting somebody you don't, well, and in this case, I guess, because listen, sometimes you'll meet somebody off the street and you'll hit it off. But like for this, it's like, you're meeting a stranger on an app. You don't, the conversation could be great, what I mean, on the app. But then you meet this person and they can be completely different than what they're saying they are. So, and then throw in zombies and you're like, man, I would be horrified. Like I would just be terrified of if I had to be in that moment or in that situation.
I was once on a date where it started off pretty rough. The girl was just laid off from her job. And I was like, oh, we could reschedule, like take the time you need. Like literally minutes before we were set to meet, she got laid off. It was a really bad situation. Yeah. Then we were at the date and she's like, no, I want to take my mind off it. I just want to like chill out. Let's have a nice lunch. Like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm down with that. She like 20, 30 minutes into the date, she was new to New York and we were in New York City. And she's like, like there's definitely aliens in New York.
Of course.
I was like, could you be more specific?
Were you like drinking the water? Like, I mean, like, yeah, of course.
I was like, you need to be more specific. I'm not sure if you're just being racist
or you're like Men in Black. I mean,
but essentially that's what she described was Men in Black. She's like, no, we're walking down the street. There's so many people. People are weird. The situation's weird. We're so close. There's such a high concentration. There's I definitely passed a few legitimate extraterrestrials.
All right. Well, that at least makes sense. Or it's like, okay, like I had a similar story where I went out with a girl who believed mermaids were real. Like we were just like on a walk and like get a dog, and the dog, was we went on the hike and the dog went into like the water. And I was like, oh, he's going to pull out like a mermaid or something. He go in that deep. And she's like, I believe mermaids are real, right? I was like, sure.
I didn't know that until you.
I was like, man, I didn't think about it, but yeah, maybe they're real. What are you going to do? Like, that's the thing with these first dates. Like, you don't want to offend anybody and you don't want to like make a faux pas. So I feel like you just agree. I feel like on your next date, you got to just like say the craziest shit possible and see how far you can go.
How far you can take it.
Yeah, how far you can take it. And like, if that person likes you and likes your vibe, then they'll go with it.
So is she like, I know that there's like the Ariel Disney version of a mermaid, but then there's pretty vicious types of mermaids out there as well in lore.
I think there was a documentary about mermaids or something on HBO. And I think that's what she was referring to. Like, but I don't know. I didn't do a deep enough dive, no pun intended, with with the mermaids to understand what was going on.
So how much of your personal experience then was injected into this? I
definitely took some personal stories or stories I've heard and definitely rolled it into this, at least with like the nervousness and trying to figure things out and like, oh, does this person like me? Does this person not like me? And I tried to do that. But I just love hearing, especially doing these podcasts, about bad dates, because like that's the fun part of doing these interviews. Now I can talk about bad dates, or I can talk about weird experiences of how people met. For me, somebody I knew, their parents met during a prison riot. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Their parents were both prison guards and the riot happened. And they were stuck in together because of what was going on, and they met and they hit it off and they got married. So it's just funny. And then there was another story. Somebody that I work with told me that somebody got a wrong number and liked the way they sounded and was like, hey, would you want to go out or something? And they're like, yeah. And they got married and had kids. So like, it just anything can happen at any time. It's just, you got to be prepared for it. And like the same thing with this and with zombies. So you got to be prepared. Love may strike when you least suspect it.
Yeah. Can I ask how you met your girlfriend?
So how I met my girlfriend is even funnier because like I didn't want to go on the dating apps. I didn't want to do that. Like I was just like, I'm loud enough. I could talk enough where I can meet people at bars or meet people out in the open or somewhere, So I always thought that that's how that would go down. So there was a period of time where like I just wasn't dating anybody, and so I was like, you know what, I would keep downloading them and deleting them because I was like, I'm not gonna. It's just a time waster.
It's a common pattern. Yeah.
It is a common pattern between people because I'm like, let's see, let's not see, what's going on. And then I joined one of the dating apps and we matched on it, and her profile had something about karaoke, and I love karaoke. So I was like, all right, let's see what's going on here. I was like, all right, what's your karaoke song of choice? And that's how it went down. And then we met up and we hit it off. And you get nervous about meeting people off of those things because you don't know if they're going to try to kill you or anything. So I knew that she had mutual friends in the area that I knew, and so I was, you know what I mean? Like you could see that. So I was like, okay, then we're okay. And now we're at the races, and now we're about to move in. So it's a great, it's a funny like full circle thing, because with Zombie Date Night, it's like just looking at those experiences and it all kind of clicks. And then working with her on this has been a lot of fun too.
Oh, that's awesome. So what is your go-to karaoke song?
Nelly's Hot in Her. That is my go-to karaoke song, but I will also say Ghostbusters is always a hit. Like if you're going to karaoke and you need a song that everybody knows, that's easy to sing, that like it's not, Ghostbusters is the one. Like everybody knows Ghostbusters. It's like it's a few words and then Ghostbusters. Like it's it's the perfect karaoke song because everybody will get into it with you and sing it with you. So, but I'm not a good singer by any stretch of the imagination.
That's not required for karaoke.
No,
I know all too well.
Yes. I did karaoke a few years ago, and like I know I'm a good karaoke person in like the middle when like people have gone already and like people are drinking a little bit and it's like it's fine. But like somebody picked me to open it and I'm like, this is not like I should not. So I did Mambo number 5, which is not like just what and like these girls like ran up on me and like started dancing to kind of like help me because like I was just like, I'm not a good singer. This is not working out for me. So but karaoke, I can't wait when the pandemic gets a little bit better, which it has, to start doing more karaoke in front of people.
Yeah. Maybe we could do the first. You were the first person to come back for a second interview. Yeah. You could be the first person to do karaoke session.
I know you live close to me, so like we could definitely make that happen.
Yeah, that would be fun. So are you planning any cons, visits, tables, walking the floors?
I'm just keeping my eyes open for opportunities. I may have something in the works for October, but it's more or less just waiting for a friend of mine, if he's he's just with the stuff with COVID and stuff like that, just making sure he's comfortable. And if he's comfortable, then and for me too, I'm not super comfortable. I'm trying to get back into it. Like I was saying no to a wedding in like February, but now things seem better. Everybody that's vaccinated, seems like things are slowing or getting better. So I'm going to go to that wedding. So maybe by October things will be okay, and maybe I'll be able to show up at a con. But if anybody wants me, I'll take a look. I want to know because I don't know if people want to read more or get stuff signed or meet me. Like I have no clue. This would be, this is a very interesting experience, and the fact that it's still going, it's a good thing.
Can I suggest for the next Slowpokes comic that you get a music track produced, like a theme song?
So I did have a theme song produced for Slowpokes.
Oh, did you? Oh, that's right. Were there words to it?
Yes. So maybe when I showed you, it wasn't. maybe I showed you just the instrumental. I could have
myself with some embarrassment.
No, it's okay.
Thinking I had a revelatory idea. I'm like, Steve, best idea ever. Oh no, I did that with my first comic ever.
I'll take ideas from anywhere. Like it's all good. Like especially with that. My friend Blake Rains made the song for Slowpokes, which I could send you. I could send you the link to it. It is basically like Thriller and like Somebody's Watching Me, very influenced by that. And I'm going to definitely keep making music. Zombie Day Night, I don't think needs a track. He said he's looking at maybe doing a Zombie Date Night type of thing, but I feel like it's just a different tone. But Slowpokes, I will probably do a song every time there's another one.
Awesome. Well,
and if you want to help me make one, I'm all in too.
I'm gonna listen to. I remember the music being good, but I don't remember the lyrics, so I obviously need to revisit that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible when we did the interview, I just sent you the instrumental. Maybe it wasn't done yet. There's very strong possibility of that. But yeah, it came out really well. And one of the funniest things from that is at the end they put like a sloth noise because at like the end of Thriller, it's like like the big laugh. So I was like, all right, I want the sloth noise at the end because that'd be funny. And my friend Blake thought I meant like putting the sloth noise throughout the whole thing. So there's a copy of the Slowpoke song where it's just the squeech, like the screech for every like 3 seconds. And I'm like, no, it's not what I meant. So it's just really funny that, how it all ended up. But the Slowpoke song is very catchy. And like, I find myself singing it every now and then. I'm like, wow, this turned out way better than I thought.
It's gonna be on my playlist, my everyday
Go for it.
wake up and get me
As a
jazzed
reminder.
playlist. Don't be slow. Wake up and get your ass in gear.
Well, listen, I want people to create to my stuff. So like if anybody wants to create something, even if it's like a 10-second thing, poem, whatever. If you're gonna do it. I'll share it. I'll put it on my channels.
I love it. Is there anything inspiring you lately, or anything you recommend in pop culture or
right now
subgenres?
I'm a huge rap fan. I just got Tyler the Creator's new album, Call Me If You Get Lost, and it is fantastic. It's basically a summer rap album if it was like curated by Wes Anderson. Like it's so good.
Oh,
it's so interesting. I know that's such an interesting like thing to do because like how do you even think of something like that?
Yeah.
But it's a very summery album, and I loved Igor. Igor was his last album, and that inspired me so much that like I'm always on board. And with this, it's just like, how did you get there? It's like it's still rap, it's still very emotional. It's just all the things that you need it to be.
I am going to listen to that. Yeah, probably right after I listen to Slowpoke's theme.
Yeah, that's first on your list.
Were you a wrestling fan? I vaguely remember you being a wrestling
yes,
fan.
I'm a casual wrestling fan. Like I've done a lot of I like stuff that's going on right now. But like The Rock is always my guy. Like somebody said that The Rock is Beyonce for boys, which is hilarious. I think it was Ron Funches, but I'm also a big like comedy fan. Like I always try to keep up with what's going on in the comedy scene, in the comedy world. And I'm glad that, now that things are getting back to normal, like we're getting back to it. Like I had Whitney Cummings tickets that got postponed. And I'm excited to go back to concerts again too. I had tickets for Rage Against the Machine and Run the Jewels, and I was like, yes, like I would love it.
Oh, yeah. So do those have hard dates now?
They do for next year, but like I sold them because I'm like, you never know what's going to happen.
You never, right?
And
yeah.
so like, if they happen and it's safe, then I'm definitely going to try to go.
Yeah. The reason I asked about wrestling specifically is a little bit selfish, because I've been on like a wrestling documentary kick.
Oh yeah, those are really good. Those are very good.
It's been, and I didn't have cable growing up, and I didn't think I really watched much wrestling, but apparently just through cultural osmosis, I know everything.
I always loved Beyond the Mat. Beyond the Mat is definitely one of my favorites. And these new like Dark Side of the Ring stuff is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the A&E biographies, I know they're doing.
The A&E ones are the ones that really put me on it, and like, just realizing how much wrestling influenced me, even though I was a very casual viewer, and now I'm a fanatic for like just the documentaries, not the actual wrestling.
Oh, yeah, well, there's a lot of good documentaries out there too, and just during the pandemic, just finding different documentaries like that are on all the streaming platforms. Like My Octopus Teacher is so good.
I didn't watch it. Is that good?
It's really good. Like at first I was like, it's probably sad, but like it was very interesting about like the life of an octopus and like how the life cycle of it and how smart they are.
And they might be aliens.
They probably are aliens, as the girl you went out with told you. But there are a lot of great documentaries.
They're alien mermaids, actually.
Alien mermaids, which might be the next comic if I play my cards right. But yeah, there's so many good stuff. We watched one it's called The Donut King, and it's about how a lot of Cambodian immigrants would come to America and open these donut shops, and they had such a tight knit community that they kind of ran off Dunkin' Donuts. Like Dunkin' Donuts was good in like the Northeast, but then when it came down to the West Coast, they had it on lock, and they were like, "You're not coming in here." So that's on Hulu too. It's called The Donut King.
Oh, interesting.
So just diving into different documentary. I love documentaries so much about the most random stuff. Like I'm all on board. There was one documentary I watched about a guy who lost his, like he was flying a plane, he lost his leg, he put it in a storage facility. He put the leg his leg right in a storage facility because he was like, all right, I can probably sew it on back, or like I'll have this for later.
On ice, so, I hope.
Yes, I don't know if it was on ice.
He could be an evil villain in Zombie Date Night.
So he loses his leg and he puts it in the storage facility. I think he ended up going to jail. So like the leg was just there, and somebody was looking through storage facilities, and he's like, oh, I'll buy that. I'll buy the leg. And then he ended up like, that was like his sideshow thing. Like he was like kind of like a hustler, like Carney guy. So he's like, oh, come see the leg that I found, blah, blah, blah. And then the guy gets out of prison and he's like, hey, could I just have my leg back? And the guy's like, no. And so they had like this court battle for years about this. And they went on like the talk show circuits about like, oh, I want my leg back. Oh, no, it's not your leg. It's my leg now. And I was like, this is such a fuck. Like, I don't need this in my life. It just happened to happen. And it's just awesome. It's a good documentary too.
I wonder if at that point that they were going on talk shows, if the guy who lost his leg was in on it to promote.
I mean, he might have. I have no.
And make the leg famous.
It was a very bizarre documentary about just extremely bizarre. But that's the best thing about this. If there's a good story to tell, like people will want to listen to it. And like same with my comics, no matter how bizarre and ridiculous they are, people will be like, I'll check it out.
Yeah. Well, it's not just about the concept, but how the story is told, and you are a very good storyteller. If Slowpokes is any indication,
yeah, I'll take that. That's the thing that was crazy too. Just going on these podcasts. Last week, I did a podcast with 4 or 5 other guys that read Slowpokes during the pandemic and became fans of it. They always promote it on Twitter and stuff like that, and we're like going deep into like the characters and like, oh, what were you thinking when this happened? And for me, that was just such a surreal moment because I don't know, like I know people liked it, but I didn't think people liked it where they're like, oh my God, this one guy wanted to get a tattoo of Slowpokes. And I'm like, that's cool. Like I definitely am like, that's a cool thing, but I don't want to encourage something that like, that's forever. Like, you sure? Like you just make sure that's something you want. But I do appreciate it, and it's awesome.
I love that you gave him a dad speech.
Because he was like, oh, I'd get one. I'd get a Slowpokes tattoo. And there's part of me that's like, that's really cool because that means I made an impact on this person. But at the same time, I'm like, make sure that I have like a career in comics first before you start doing this. Because if you get Slowpokes and then like something happens and like Zombie Date Night sucks, I
love that below the table you were like, yes, like pumping your, what is this called? Like, yes.
Yes.
the yes movement, the reverse uppercut.
Reverse uppercut.
Well, under the table you were reverse uppercutting, but then you were like, okay, need to tone it down and give this guy a talking to.
Well, listen.
I hope he ends up getting it. Personally,
I hope he ends up getting it too. If that's what he really wants. Yeah.
So did you have as deep of an answer as they were hoping for in regards to
we ended up talking for like 2.5 hours about Slowpokes and like my writing style and like where I came from, and I just never thought anybody would care enough to want to go that deep with stuff that I'm writing, because this is all new to me. Like this is all very new, and it's fun, and it's just, I can't believe it. Like if Slowpokes is the last thing that I do, like let's say that this is my legacy is that, then that means that I did okay.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely not. So keep having fun, keep pushing things.
I'm gonna do that. We can roll through it.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
This is Allegra, the editor of Zombie Day Night. You can if you want. Yeah, we were just hanging out. She's like, oh, I'll pop in now.
I thought I heard him say something about wrestling. I was like, okay, free.
But she was trying to go to the other side, and she was like, oh, I don't want to ruin the interview. So she was crawling.
You don't have to crawl for this podcast. It's, yeah, we're very flexible.
We're very flexible.
We're very flexible to have movement in the background and people jumping in and jumping out. So cool. Do you want to talk about your experience at all as your first time editing and
working with this fool?
Yeah, working with this guy. He said that you're gonna tear him up when you do your interview for the Kickstarter.
Oh yeah. No, I don't know what to say yet. I don't know.
So she's a very shy person. So I'm like, oh, do you want to come on tonight? She's like, well, maybe I'll pop in later. Yeah.
No, working with Steve was great.
I forced her to say that.
I sense like a ... No,
I mean, obviously reading his comics, you know, what his, ideas are like. And sometimes I have to just be like, I don't know about that one.
So is it kind of toning down some of the crazier concepts that come out of the messed up brain of Steve Urena, or is it more getting the flow right and adjusting things so the story goes?
I never want to rein this down because I enjoy it. I think it's awesome. I love his comics and his ideas, and we'll be sitting, anywhere at any time, and he'll just be like, oh, what if I wrote something like this and like some weird idea, and I'm like, okay, figure out how to make that one work, and then it'll look. But so a lot of it's just like he'll get really into it, want bigger the better, crazier, more fun, and then I'm like, well, that's not going to make sense at all. So try.
When I get the hook.
Or it does, and then it's like, cool, that's a great idea. So yeah, I don't know. That's my opinion. It just depends.
But I love that he has you, and you have an environment where you could have these crazy ideas and then kind of thread the needle so that they all come together. Because if you shoot down the ideas from the get-go and he's spouting out nonsense like I also do,
which is the usual.
Then the ideas never get to flourish and grow and blossom into beautiful murdering sloths.
Exactly. And honestly, like all the zombie date night stuff, I'm like really excited for, because I feel like the first comic doesn't even get to like the weirdest shit. Oh, am I not cursed?
Yeah.
Sorry. So I can't wait till all that stuff comes out. Trying to connect the dots. We had to that was fun. Yeah. So I can't wait till that stuff comes to reality here.
So let's say Slowpokes scratch the surface. If Slowpokes just scratch the surface, then where is zombie date night? How many layers deep are we scratching, and how many more comics do we need to have released from Steve's messed up brain before we get into the core of it?
I don't know if the core is reachable. I honestly think the comics are already the tamed version of what's in there. So, I mean,
but she's the only one that's read Zombie Date Night, and she can give her a review of it. So hopefully that people like it.
No, I helped with it. Obviously, yes. I like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, A+. A++. Screw that.
Well, because she wrote, she was part of it. So
yeah.
So 1+ for you and 1+ for you.
Yeah, so basically. And she's gonna be credited as, what was it? The Horde Queen in the credits? Right. The Horde Queen. The zombie Horde Queen.
Horde Queen editor, by the way.
Horde Queen editor.
Which I realize makes me sound kind of presumptuous right off the bat. But it works. So whatever.
This might be her last one, but
I was just going to ask if the working relationship was going to continue.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had some, I guess, debates about what characters do.
That's a politically correct way to put it.
Yeah, well, it's probably straight up fistfights about what we wanted to do. But it's just more or less just like all right, I'm thinking this, you're thinking this. Let's find a happy medium. Let's find something where everybody wins, or let's find something where it makes sense of the story and that it makes everything pop more. Because like I have my opinions, and at the end of the day, like, you know, I will, I will be like, well, you know, I think this is what's best for the project, but I try to work with people. I don't want to be a Nazi about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because if we fight about this and then this is an argument and it goes to something else, which is which hard in our relationship, where it's like, I can't believe you let those characters do that. Like, you know, I don't want that to go into into something else. Like, this is supposed to be fun, and I wanted to make sure she had fun while she was doing it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would say I'm also a female, so writing female characters for a lot of men, historically, in comics or not, is kind of hard, I think. As a female reading these things and watching movies, I think it's hard for a lot of men to come up with a decent representation of a female character all the time. So as a female, given not very feminine female, but still as a female, I'm going to be looking at this in a little different way than him or many other writers. So
yeah.
And just writing female characters, like I didn't know if I was going to be good at that. And people liked the Charity character and then Slowpokes. So I was like, okay, but I always make sure that she reads it, because I'm like, all right, I want to make sure it sounds correct. Because if I do something wrong, or if I offend somebody, or if I do something that I'm not, that's not right, then it's not going to be good for the comic.
Yeah. Do you guys have any feedback on how you constructively work together through divergent opinions on things, like how you flesh things out and made decisions when there was a disagreement?
I guess Zombie Date Night will be the feedback if it works. Because if, you know what I mean, be like, oh, this doesn't work well, or this isn't it. But I'm going through comics experience. Paul Allor, the writer of Hollow Heart, which is a really good comic, he's helped us. So he reads it through too, and he said he likes the comic. He says he thinks it's funny, and he shouted it out on his Twitter. So I'm like, all right, then we're good. I think we're okay.
Nice.
So, and if he's saying that, he's somebody that wrote something very cool, then I think we'll have a future in comics and in our love life as well. Unless he beats my ass, and then that's it. But we'll see what happens.
Well, people could look forward to that slaughter in your upcoming podcast together.
They're beating the shit out of me in cartoon form for 20 pages.
Yay.
But yeah, it's all very positive. It's been very cool.
Nice. Any parting words if we're gonna wrap up right now?
Buy Zombie Date Night, buy Slowpokes. Keep an eye out for future stuff. Follow me on Twitter at the Steve Urena and Zombie Date Night and Slowpokes Comic. And those are also the handles for Instagram as well. But thank you for having me on again. I'm appreciative of being the second guest, and I'm glad we have a third guest, I guess, here. So,
yeah, you guys pull up another chair next time, and we'll have.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Please.
But that's it. Everything's good. Thank you again.
My pleasure, dude. And until next time, enjoy your and all of the random. Take it easy. Hello, and thank you for hanging on tight. This was a very well buttoned up episode, if I do say so myself, so not too much to take home here in the post-show debriefing, other than to say I really enjoy talking to Steve. I enjoy what he refers to as his messed up brain and all of the ideas that come from it. And, some of them he gets rid of, and the ones he holds on to and puts into his projects are really fun and interesting and quirky and all of those good words to describe things that are original. So I'm excited for Steve to continue branching out and developing more comics, other comics, and also hopefully in the near term delivering second and third and fourth issues of his two titles here, Slowpokes and Zombie Date Night. One takeaway from the episode was that Steve is putting this out there, and he has a strategy for it to get into the hearts and minds of people. But at the end of the day, he is just excited to be creating. And shouldn't we all? So I hope you have a wonderful creative day where you just enjoy the process, enjoy your own creativity, and have fun with it. And until next time, I bid you farewell. Enjoy the random.